There's been a classical debate in education. Is education for learning or is it for careers? Special higher education. And we are in India where parents, I have two grown-up kids. They're, you know, we look at their fees. My daughter's in the US. And there is an ROI. To say that we will only focus on learning and not to focus on ROI, it may look good for an academic discussion, but at the back of every parent's mind, student's mind, and I would say even the institution's mind is ROI. If you transcend that debate, both learnings are important and careers are important, which is placements. Today's topic of discussion at the BW NexGen Higher Education Summit is advancing higher education curriculum to careers. I don't think there is any distinction, and we couldn't have a better and a wider panel than this. Let me start by inviting each one for a 1 to 2 minute opening comment. I'll start with Professor Krishnan, who doesn't really need an introduction. He's the director of IIM Education, IIM Bangalore, and in the higher education in the B school space has made an impact in making sure even an institution like IIM Bangalore, which is at the really top of the heap, does things which make sure that the vision from curriculum to careers in a 2024 technology-focused world stays relevant. So I'll start with Professor Krishnan and then move around the house.
Thank you, Annurag. Good afternoon, all of you. I think it's pretty clear that curriculum and careers both have to be factored into any education system. If you take IIMs, for example, I think we are reasonably good at doing that. How we do that essentially is by keeping in close touch with what are some of the important trends in the industry. For example, a couple of years ago when we were doing our MBA curriculum review, we did an extensive discussion with CEOs and managers of top companies, and three important themes emerged. They talked about digital, quite obviously. The second thing they talked about was data. And the third thing they talked about was ESG. So they said these three are the contemporary topics which really need to be part of the curriculum, because any graduate we are taking today, we want them to be strong in all these three. Of course, in any particular company, to what extent you need a mix of these three could vary. For example, in one particular company, I know they expect even MBA graduates to know enough about data and analytics in detail that if required, they could use analytics tools. Maybe in another company, they don't expect the managers to do that, but they expect the managers to understand it well enough so that they can direct others to do the analytics activity for them. But I think to me, the number one priority if you want to balance curriculum and careers is to make sure that you're in touch with what's happening in the industry and make sure that that gets reflected in your curriculum. The second point I would like to add at the outset is the importance of combining both knowledge and skills. I think what we find today is that in general our curriculum tends to be more knowledge oriented, but when you go into a job, what companies are really looking for immediately is how much can you deliver on the job as soon as you join. The days when you could have a very long training period and people could be completely retaught once they join the company, by and large, companies don't have that luxury today. They want people to be delivering almost as soon as they join. So I think therefore the skills component becomes important, and even very basic skills I think are going to be important for that. One of the debates we are having these days in academia is, should we allow people to use tools like ChatGPT? But the fact is that when they go into industry is using tools like that. So students better know how to use them. So at least my view is therefore your curriculum also has to be up to date with the skills industry is using, and make sure those are also included in your curriculum so that students get enough exposure to them. So these are the two key points I would make at this stage. Keep your curriculum up to date by being aligned with industry. And second, make sure that you have the right mix of knowledge and skills, and the skills that you're teaching are also up to date with the needs.
Thank you, Professor Krishnan. And internships can be that bridge between, because you're talking of industry ready, and Gen AI is making impact. In fact, we did a research at Businessworld with CXOs and CEOs. The biggest thing that is keeping the CXOs and CEOs awake is how to apply Gen AI to their businesses. How do they stay relevant? Let me now bring in Professor Prafulla Agnihotri, who's the director of IIM Sirmaur, and again an educationist who's seen many institutions and many generations. Professor Agnihotri, all yours for opening comment.
Uh, Dr. Batra started with a starting remark whether education should lead to employment. Happened to be the placement chair at IIM Calcutta several years ago. And actually, those 2 years, 2009 and 10, someone did refer to that incidents of 2009, had taught me a lot as a placement chair and opened my eyes. And I realized that even at IIM, and IIM Calcutta is one of the institutes which has the best placement records. Okay, students, I have seen firsthand how difficult it is for the students to cope up with that stress. There is a stress that is created by the circumstances. My batchmates are getting placed, I am not yet placed. The society imposes a lot of stress on them. Parents call them, hey, so and so got placed and we heard that he got a package of 1 crore. What about you? And a person has not yet is yet to get a single shortlist. My girlfriend is got placed, but still I am not. Her parents are planning to engage us. There are so many types of stresses that these kids have. Let's understand that. And before I go to the next one, let me ask you a very blunt question. I'm a straightforward, direct communication person. Why do students come to MBA education for? Do they come there only for the sake of knowledge? Only to increase their maturity or knowledge base? No. They also come here for a job, which is a fact. Let's not deny that. Unless someone really wants to do higher studies like PhD or whatever, that's an exception, but these exceptions are rare. And therefore, in my opinion, there is no doubt that education and industry should not go hand in hand. In fact, management is one such field, unlike pure sciences. Management is one such field which follows industry. We learn from industry and try to teach them. Industry is always 1 or 2 steps ahead of us. And therefore, there has to be a perfect balance between the industry orientation and the knowledge orientation. Rishi rightly mentioned about knowledge and skills. I'll go one step further. I'll say knowledge, skill, and attitude. Without the right attitude, in my personal opinion, knowledge and skills are meaningless. Okay? We have to also look at building a proper attitude. Okay? An attitude of learning orientation. Because what we teach today may not be relevant after 5 years. 5 years ago, we did not speak about ChatGPT. Today, it is ChatGPT. So we have to learn, basically, students to unlearn and learn new things and make them realize that learning is continuous. When they go to the job, they will be given different assignments. Okay? And naturally, they will keep learning thereafter. They will learn to adapt to different environments. They need to learn to understand how to work with different personalities. And this is what will make them successful in real life. So knowledge, skills, attitude, number 1. Number 2, industry orientation. And management education should also follow what is required at the industry and accordingly adapt itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Krishnan and Professor Agnihotri for those opening comments. I'd like to at some stage ask you, how are B schools reinventing themselves? How are the leaders of B schools, the professors are reinventing themselves? Because unless until you are familiar, I mean, we can keep talking about ChatGPT, unless until you use 6, 7 tools, 10 tools, you see the power, you will then be able to. So what are you doing? And in general, what are the B schools doing to retool the faculty is something so that the curriculum leads to careers, But now let me bring in Professor Annapurni Subramaniam ji. She's the director of the Indian Institute of Astrophysics. Your opening comments.
So I think when I would like to define my space here, the sense that I represent the fundamental science region. The sense that if you look at astrophysics belongs to fundamental science. And the question of basic sciences and understanding the basic sciences and how do you attract people to do basic sciences? What is its role in the current situation when you are talking about high tech, high impact industry, producing very niche stuff, etc. Now, when you talk about fundamental science, it is where you start thinking and starting questioning things around you. and getting to know why it is, what is it, and why you're doing it. So fundamental science is trying to go to the grassroots level of understanding something and how to use that to your own understanding things around you, and also to further your, let's say, things about things you don't know, like unknowns. How do you approach unknowns completely? So if you look at astrophysics, it's like a plot of unknown versus unknown. So you really don't know what you're going to do. So how do you do it? How do you want to look at, how do you capture the photon from the farthest object in the universe? How do you understand which is out there, which doesn't emit any electromagnetic radiation? How do you capture them? Understand how, whether there is life out there, How do you want to live in Mars? So these kind of questions, if you want to ask, which is like outrageous questions. This is the courage which gives you to ask those outrageous questions and also find ways how do you do it. So fundamental science gives you courage to ask these questions and also tells you to find ways to address them. Now, why do you want to do this? Because if you look at in this particular room itself, there is technology which is able to do these things now because people have thought about these crazy things few decades ago. This gives you two things. One, it is not like an overnight solution you will get out of it. But if you don't sow the seed today, you will not let the plant grow and grow into a tree and give you fruits in few decades. So if you don't do it today, you will not get the trees. And if you also know that if you want to have 100 trees tomorrow, you cannot plant 100 plus saplings today. You cannot put 100 seeds today because not everything will grow into a sapling. Not every sapling will grow into a tree. We had this, the thing of can every sapling go into a tree and you tracking it, right? So that conversation was there in the morning. So you cannot do that. You have to sow many seeds. And when you come to aptitude, not everybody has the aptitude to do business. Not everybody has the aptitude to do art. Not everybody has the aptitude to do deep research. So it is the question of the education has the responsibility of identifying what that person's passion is about. We are talking about productivity, we are talking about effective delivery, etc. If you put the wrong person on the wrong platform, it's not going to deliver. The person has to understand where it is and then do it. So when you talk about astrophysics in the country today, the astrophysics has progressed so much that India is seen as a global partner. There are many projects where India is partnering, and also that the space program, the Indian Space Research Organization, has been one of the pioneers, and with the Chandrayaan landing, etc., we have proved ourselves to be a very credible, very highly accomplished nation who can do things which other nations cannot dream of. Where is it coming from? Our own people, our own technology, our own willingness to dream and make sure that happens. So these questions get transferred into technology because, if you want to dream of sending a person to moon or sending a person to Mars, you need to develop so many technologies. And that is when those questions drive those technologies. They cannot happen tomorrow, but it will happen in the next 5 years. So important to invest in fundamental science. It lets you dream big and also ask very daring questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I totally agree. Education's purpose is to be able to create minds that discover things that haven't been discovered. It is not just about grades or jobs, which is also in today's world to say it is only. And I think Indian parents and Indian culture is also of a certain kind that we start focusing on, while we focus on learning on the outcomes a lot more. And, so you said the right thing that education also has to be a study. We know what we know what we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know. So there are areas which are pushing the boundaries and figuring out what we don't know about what we don't know. So really every branch of education on every stream of knowledge has a role to play in development of society. And I think the role of astrophysics is huge. It may not be talked often, but it is huge. Of course, we have people like Stephen Hawking who really made it. He became, so to say, the visible face of this domain. But really, I think it's an area where people go by choice. And it's a deep and intense area I'm not saying anything here, other domains are less, but let me now bring in Mr. Rajeev Kumra, Dr. Rajeev Kumra, who's the director of the TII Institute of Management, for his opening comments. This panel is business school education heavy, but it is a large part of higher education. You can take my mic.
Yeah, first of all, Annurag, thanks to you and to Businessworld for inviting us and putting up such a great panel and a thought process. So my take is very clear on this. We have 42,343 colleges in India, and 6.5 million graduates are passing out, and 2.5 million to be precise from STEM. And we have the best of the top regulators sitting in this crowd. They're doing an excellent job. But having said this, before coming here, I read the reports of McKinsey, PwC 2023. And unfortunately, what the report is, 55% of our graduates are unemployable, and 52% are applying for AI, but they are not job ready. And unfortunately, only 57% from tier 2 and 3 are good to get job, but that too in non-technical area, which is not bad. But then there is a lot to catch up for us, which is responsibilities on us as well. So where is the gap? I mean, if I agree with my co-panelist from IIM directors, I was also had a opportunity of working for IIM Lucknow for quite long, and I was the 3 years also executive MBA placement chair. As I agreed with what he said, there was a company called as Deloitte. They come for a campus recruitment, and they wanted to pick up some X number. When they had picked up X minus number, I met them and I said, what is the reason why you're not picking up? You said X. They said very clearly that, look, your students are theoretically perfect, but they are not industry ready. I said, can you be more precise? This is a very broad statement which you are making. They said they are on two aspects they are missing. I said, for example, they said, we asked them, what is greenhouse? They explained us, they gave a lot of theory, but then they are not able to relate a greenhouse to consulting and how it will be used, one, and then they're lacking on multiple skill sets. So what I understood is that the industry is looking for skill sets. Is our curriculum really tied up to the skill sets? And Deloitte report itself of 2023 says the skill sets which are required are analytical, creative, AI, big data, and sustainability. How many of our courses are actually attuned to it? We need to look at it, because we all are higher educators sitting here. So we need to answer this question. Are we making our students skill ready? Are they, for example, agility is the skill which is required. Are we looking for inclusivity and diversity in our curriculum? Because that is what is being picked up by the industry. So is our curriculum having PwC, that is weaker sections, or LGBT, or women in the workforce, how we can make them more career ready? Is there a pedagogy and evaluation? Are we open for it? For example, we talk about experiential learning, but our system says that you need to have a written test, you need to have evaluation. What about those which are experiential learning? For example, we have courses like going for expedition on Himalayas. Now, how do you put it? But that improves the holistic development. AI is one very important thing, as rightly said by Professor Rishikesha, which is coming up now. ChatGPT, for example, is professors going to compete with it, or are they going to use it? For example, if you look at Khan Emingo, which is a Khan Academy, you go and check, they are actually imbibing it in their curricula itself. So can as a professors, if you are only delivering still information in the classes, I think we are not making them skill ready. Are we going to use that to, for example, design the quizzes, or design the course curriculum, or make a learning as a, so can we make AI as a part of our course and use it? Just not cyber security, cryptos, we are talking about that. I'm saying ChatGPT as a part of all the courses. So how are we moving along with the industry pace? The most important part is the bureaucracy which is happening in some of the schools, wherein, for example, how fast can we change the curricula? Is it having too much of layers which is required? Specifically, IIMs, IITs, and business schools in private have that flexibility to change the curricula faster. But what about universities? What about state universities? How much time does it take to change? Do we have a flexibility of inviting 20%, let's say, guest speakers from industry? Do we have a scope to have industry-led courses to be imbibed in the courses? I think that is where is the way forward.
Thank you so much for your comments, Dr. Kumra. I can only say, I was preparing for the session yesterday, and I was trying to see what is IIM in Bangalore doing. For example, one of the points about, equity and excess, and at IIM Bangalore, a couple of months back, there is a visually special person who did his PhD in now a faculty at IIM Bodhgaya. It may have started with PhD education, but I'm sure it percolate down. In terms of industry ready, IIM Bangalore did a tie-up with a financial services institute to be able to bring courses which have some resonance. And this is IIM Bangalore, which is really top of the heap. So Indian institutions across the board are trying to be able to balance both curricula and careers, learning and employability. But at this point, let me bring in Dr. Atish Chattopadhyay for his opening comments.
Thanks, Annurag. I will touch upon few points based on my experience on varied kind of institutions. So one end was SPJMR, then IMT, MICA, IBS, and now JAGSOM. So it caters to different spectrums. So first is about your whole issue of ROI. I think we as a society need to look at education differently, because ROI on education is infinite. And one of the important things that happens, the hype that happens on the starting job is particularly in business schools. And that creates some kind of aberration in the society. Just to give you an example, in 2022, many of the top schools declared their, the starting salary of their outgoing batch, and which remained as high as it is usual. I was wondering, because my son was actually in All India Institute of Medical Sciences fighting COVID. Okay, they were working at some 80,000 rupees after their MBBS, and then when they were in the front line, health workers. So somebody saving life is at 80,000 per month. Somebody selling soap is at 30 lakh per annum. I think we need to look at jobs, the starting jobs in a different light. And I'm glad that Madam Annapurni is there. One of my cousins who came back from Purdue after a PhD was offered around some 60,000 odd in Indian Institute of Science here in Bangalore. So I think when we are talking about basic sciences, medicine, the whole issue of ROI needs to be redefined by the society and by the media. That is the first part. Okay, and that's something we as educators need to look at, and I think the MBA education is overhyped, and it is going to have a course correction, thanks that the government is insisting on number of, the intake going up in the IIMs and the number of IIMs going up. The second is about the curriculum. Curriculum, at least in the B schools, have always been about what is required in the long run and what is required in the short run. So the first year of the curriculum is essentially is about knowledge and attitude, whereas the second year of the curriculum is essentially about what will make the graduate successful in the first job. So there is a balance in the curriculum between long run and short run. I think the important part in the first year is learning to learn, whereas the important part in the second year is to learning to succeed with the skill sets that are required in the very first job. The third part is regarding how we are looking at the curriculum, particularly we at JAGSOM, because it's a different institution as compared to the top institutions like IIMs, and we shifted our focus from functions to roles. Now, what we looked at is what is required to function as a site merchandiser, to function as a territory manager, like that. So we developed career tracks which are part of the major or the specialization. So a sales and service career track will essentially prepare for a sales management role or a territory management role or a key account manager role, rather than looking at developing a consultant or something like that. So I think each institution needs to understand what are the kind of input they are getting. I mean the characteristics of the students. What is it that they are going to do to cater to their recruiters and accordingly prepare their graduates. I think these are the things which needs to be understood by each of the institution. Of course, developing institution leaders in itself is a challenge. I am in a task force with AACSB, which is actually to groom deans in business schools. And we are talking about India, it is about globally, because there is a dearth of leaders in business schools across the globe. And a lot of times, associate professors are now becoming deans in top business schools. So that in itself is a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chattopadhyay. At this point, let me bring in Dr. Manisha Singh. She is the Dean Academics at the ICFAI Foundation for Higher Education based in Bengaluru University. ICFAI started as a business school in Bengaluru, but it is now a full-fledged university. It has courses in legal, it has courses in journalism, and of course it has a whole spectrum of courses. So, Dr. Singh, all yours.
So they talk about in terms of getting a higher package or maybe starting a entrepreneurship journey, etc. So while ROI and career is important, what I also feel is that curriculum importance cannot be undermined. The simple reason is, if the curriculum is not strong, the career journey may not be very enriching.
Absolutely.
So a curriculum which is basically content rich, right? Industry requirement, aligned with industry expectations, curriculum which also talks about the various skill sets through different interventions, a curriculum where the pedagogy talks about experiential learning, which is immersive in nature, which is customer or student centric, right? Curriculum which also talks about the environment around us. For example, the SDG goals that we talk about and we integrate that in our curriculum. If those things are not there, I don't think we bring out the wholesome student who is basically ready to face the industry, ready to make his mark, ready to basically adapt to whatever situation is there outside, ready to learn, then unlearn, and ready to upskill whenever there is a requirement. So while you talk about career, which is important, at the same time, that career is not possible without a content-rich curriculum. That is what I feel. Now, a content-rich curriculum is based on what industry requires, as we said. And therefore, yes, we have integrated AI or ML or blockchain or data analytics in our curriculum. But at the same time, we also have to look at how deeply the integration is. A small example, maybe Excel for so many years have been there, and the industry has been saying that we need people to work on Excel, right? But it was not successful till the time the curriculum integrated it domain-wise. So it is one point to understand Excel, it is one point to integrate in each domain, that is domain is used or taught using that Excel. So similarly, whatever we are talking about here, whether it is AI or data analytics, until it is not integrated with the curriculum, that is how that domain works with the help of these AI tools or data analytic tools, I don't think immersion is complete or integration is complete. In fact, the assessment attribution by NAC also has changed from input-based to output-based assessment. So basically, a curriculum that gives you a student where it gives you a complete holistic personality of the student. The outcome is in the form of a great career, not only great career, but also a great career path. It's not only to ensure that the students are placed, but also to ensure that his learning journey from there onward is continued beautifully, is continued successfully, is what I feel is more important. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being very real about what is there. And let me bring in Dr. Manasa Nagabhushanam ji for her final comments.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Annurag, for giving me this opportunity. So if you look at when the first question when you posed regarding careers, curriculum and careers, so it is not only about the industry that we are talking about, so it is both occupation as well as non-occupation. So students get into various fields, and today society offers a large spectrum of opportunities. It may be in the voluntary organizations, voluntary sector, it may be in the government as well as in the industry. So our focus should be more on the learning part. See, in the book, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. So in the process of learning, students should be allowed to think slow so that at a later stage, they get
the brain gets wired and they would be able to think fast. So our responsibility is not focusing all the students to get into the careers in terms of looking at their packages and these things. As a business institution, our focus should be on learning. And the other part is about the curriculum. So when we talk about the curriculum, how are we developing this curriculum is a very, very important thing. See, when I did my MBA, what curriculum was taught and what we are doing and what is the percentage change that we see is very minimal, maybe 10% or 20%. So that is the kind of change. So actually, if you look at the businesses, if you look at the society, there is a big change and it is dynamic and it is moving ahead. So in such a situation, I think that whatever content that we have, it has to be thoroughly revamped. We have to understand, and when we say that industry has to participate in the whole process of curriculum building, if we look at our board of studies, so you may have 1 or 2 industry members and they vet the curriculum. See, that's not the process. It has to be co-created. Industry members and academicians should co-create because academicians have less exposure to the industry. So what are the opportunities? The missing link in the whole thing is the faculty. Students somehow they adapt to the change and they pick up because of the huge availability of these digitized tools, they are able to pick up and they will serve the industry or they will serve any user system. But the thing is the missing link is the faculty. So how are we going to bridge the faculty in the process of curriculum development? How with agility our faculty can work with the industry and they can develop this curriculum, curate the curriculum. See, hardly institutions give 3 days or 4 days for curriculum development. But curriculum development is a larger piece. It requires curation. It requires a bigger understanding to serve better the industry. I think that we have to extend this. So a lot of thinking has to get into this process and we are just using it as industry is used as a pickle in the whole food. So instead of that, it has to be with the system. So we need stakeholders, all stakeholders participating in the institutions. And if institutions can create such kind of a agile ecosystem within the institution, then it is possible for us to co-create many things. Other than if we are not doing that, we work in silos. So this is my
Thank you so much. You know, I'd like to just summarize by saying that I think in my view, as both as a student, went to a business school, then worked and then became an entrepreneur, and with all humility, where I sit, I do have a understanding of what's happening. I would still say learning is more important than careers. If you have the right learning, careers will follow. If you have the right faculty, the careers will follow. And I like to say this while I'm all for industry interaction, I think the core of an educational institution is I don't want to use the word theoretical training, but subject matter expertise oriented training is very key, because in internship and in the way top tier schools work, I mean, you take Ivy League schools, there were 8 Ivy League institutions traditionally because the red buildings were covered in Ivy. But what defines them is the fact is they've kept pace. You can take the Wharton. It was the first to create a corpus for investing in startups at the campus first. Everybody else followed. And so I think it's not either or, it's and. The answer is and. But I would say from where you left, 80% learning, 20% industry. 80% faculty, 20%. You can make it 70. But I still feel that the learning on the campus is really, and my daughter is in a decent university in the US. I took her to, she got through into, one in Juhu in Bombay, Narsimonji. And she went there and said, she asked me, Papa, where is the university? This is a building. So I said to her, Beta, in places like Mumbai, New York, you have vertical universities, right? And she's now in a university in North Carolina called Wake Forest, which is in the 191st year. And it is the kind of immersive learning she is happening. Career, God willing. But I think the reasons some of the Indian universities do so well is because the quality of faculty, the quality of course material, the quality of teaching, and then if you top it up with industry interactions, more internship, like what Professor Krishnan is doing at IIMB Bangalore, then you really bring out something that is special. I want to ask everyone a closing comment, and I'll start from there. But Dr. Krishnan, what has changed? What still needs to be done in terms of improving the curriculum and improving careers? What needs to happen which has not happened? You talked about what has happened. Bach kya gaya hai? What needs to happen?
I think the core really is more of also making our research a little more aligned with the challenges with both the country and the industry is facing. Because just remember, another important part of the time that faculty is spending is on research. So there needs to be finally a kind of circular alignment between all of these. I think when they start reinforcing each other, then you will be in much better shape, because then all these dichotomies you're talking about, career versus education, all these things will, I think, come down if there's much better alignment in the whole system.
And Professor Krishnan, anyone, Dr. Chattopadhyay, Dr. Kumra.
So I just wanted to mention that when you have, I'm talking about space sciences as such, when you have, a lot of startups coming up and, they don't know how to do things, but then the academia knows how to do things. They've been doing, for quite some time, etc. So I think it's important to have this collaboration. He was also mentioning that industry people should be able to come to academia, spend some time, and then go back. Similarly, academia should go to industry and come back. But this, if you get this media wired, then you can actually see what is required in the industry can be plugged into the academia. The academia can actually go back and see, okay, I may actually been doing it. So this should be this link should be made more clear. And many institutions may not actually see the benefit, but it should be wired into the system so that it can happen.
Then let me put a warm and get everyone in the US, in certain B schools, I won't take their names, all the professors, people who offer courses, they are ranked, the courses are ranked, and there is a certain prices for extra courses. And if there are, in a class, 60 students are being taken, if you need to do more credits and you got to pay more for a certain professor. For example, at Kellogg, let me take the Associate Dean, Professor Sani's course. Look at its rating. He does so much work in the industry that he's able to use what he does in the industry in his class with the base of teaching that he has of 30 years. So is that happening in India?
I have a different take on it. Sorry for being a devil's advocate. We are looking for a very narrow angle of a business education. That's why we are talking in one side. If you look at basic sciences or for that medical, I think education is leading way ahead of industry. In fact, industry is coming with their problems and education is solving it. So they are much steps ahead of it. For example, if you look at our own history, when Nalanda was there, or so many Gurukula was there. So was there any industry? No. Was education not contributing to the society? It was. Indeed, we take pride in it of our Bharat Sanskriti. Because of this reason, So saying that we are lagging behind industry, possibly that's not right. Possibly we need to collaborate together. That's a right way to say it. So this is my take on it.
Dr. Chattopadhyay, your comment?
There are two aspects to this. Number one, Indian education has delivered. Otherwise, so many CEOs and so many deans would not have been Indians.
And the progress of the nation.
We just now did an event, Mind Without Borders in Atlanta, and we could identify 47 Indian academics who are leaders in business schools across, which are ranked and accredited. Okay, I think a copy of the book I will share with you. That is number one. Number two is regarding, because I have seen what used to happen earlier, and because Indian education has delivered. And I have seen the IIT and the university system. What I have seen are the professors actually working in the social context. So I have seen Professor Sunit Mukherjee or Subhash Mukherjee working with the first test tube baby, which was Durga, which was a controversy later on. Or I have seen a Gobar gas being produced, or a what I call the prawn cultivation being activated in the East Calcutta wetlands. And the professors were deeply involved. And that's how, because I was, my father was a professor, I could go and visit and see that. I don't see that happening that way today, at least in B schools. And probably we need to rethink whether we need to ape the Western model of tenure track, FT50 publication, whether that would make an impact or an impact on the viewers of Sambalpur. I think that's the question that I would like to pose to the panel.
Professor Agnihotri, again, you were at IIMCAL and you talked about how much you learned in your tenure as the head of placements because your interaction with the industry went. What has changed in 14 years or 15 years and what has not changed?
Nothing has changed.
It's like my hair 10 years back and now.
The stress remains the same on the students. As long as we are going to give excessive importance, or I'll not say excessive, importance to placements, the stress is going to remain on the students. Let's try to understand it from their point of view. Okay? We have to understand, as you rightly use the word career, we should offer careers and not jobs. And even the organizing bodies like NAC and others should not evaluate institute on the basis of purely placements. Placement is also one of the important factors in the evaluation. I'm sure Dr. Sahasrabudhe would agree with me, okay, as per the format that is given. And naturally, as long as that is there, both the institute and students, if you want to offer careers, you have to make certain changes to pedagogy. Okay? We follow case studies. It's a great instrument of learning. I am personally advocate of case studies. But when a fresher comes to the class and he's attending my class and I'm giving a case study to him, he has no knowledge of how industry works. How is he going to tackle that case study? Okay? We follow it from the US, fine, but in the US, students who do MBA, they come with lots of experience. Minimum 7 to 8 years of industry experience.
More than 6.
Yeah. And so they know what they are talking about. Just the other day in one of my classes, students said, increase advertising outlay by 5%. And the question for that came to my mind is, who will bring that extra revenue? What will be its impact on your bottom line? The cost.
And the average advertising spend is 8%. So if you increase by 5%, like you're increasing it by 60%.
We have to see the pedagogy also from the target audience's point of view. Okay? Faculty members. How many faculty members have a stint of working in the industry and preferably at a managerial level? Many of them just complete their MBA or PhD and come straight to academics without working in the industry. And how can you give industry orientation through these faculty members to the students? So there are so many other things also that we must consider if you want to make it career oriented. It's just not just one single thing. Okay? Jobs are important for the students. They come for the placement, they come for the education, they have to repay their loans. They are important. How much importance should we give to them? Okay? Should it be in career? As one of the studies shows, those who take campus placement and work, 80% of them quit the job in the first year and go somewhere else. What does that mean? So there are so many angles to it. It's not just one. There are always, and there are two sides to the same discussion. If you listen to the student will give their own side. Industry has its own side, as Professor Kumra rightly mentioned. Some of the students are just not job ready. If they are not job ready, whose responsibility it is? Only the institute, the industry, student, or all the three?
Thank you so much. Dr. Nagabhushanam, you wanted to say something?
Yeah.
Dr. Batra, would you mind if I just leave? Because
Yes,
I was just told that there is
you
huge
don't
traffic
get
in
on
the
a
city.
plane. He has a flight to Chandigarh and to
And
Sirmaur.
it would take
Absolutely.
1.5 hours.
And I'm anyway wrapping.
Thank you
after
so
Dr.
much for
Singh's
your invitation.
comments.
And please, my apologies for leaving this early. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you for making the effort to come all the way. Thank you. Please give Dr. Agnihotri a big round of applause.
So there needs to be a change from the content-oriented stuff to contextual.
Context.
Context has to be brought in. See, India has emerged and thousands of case studies, and you see many success stories, unicorns, and they are not being brought to the classes. So we still use Western case studies and Western cases in the classrooms. So a lot of things have happened. And I think that management thought, especially the whatever literature that we have developed, So there's a big change that needs to be happen in the management literature. Agility has to be brought in. Only that startup culture can give you a lot of insights
Learnings.
rather than looking at the larger organizations and still teaching the same old concepts in the classes. So these changes have to be brought about, contextual understanding and working in the context. So only that can bring, that is the experiential learning, and that can bring some change.
Final comment from Dr. Singh and I'll wrap the panel.
Yeah, I would add to what Sir said. It is not only about the CTC and other things. Or let us start from the beginning. We talk about, or we give more emphasis on marks from the beginning. So it's not only that this student or this institute got the higher CTC. We also have undue emphasis on getting more marks or 98%.
And media amplifies that.
And media amplifies.
So,
This is
this
the topper
student
from
got
this
this much,
institute.
this campus.
So that unnecessary stress actually starts building from the very beginning. So as Sir was mentioning, that why not go for an open book? Why not, instead of checking their memory, why not start inculcating the habit of that critical thinking from the very beginning? Right, open projects, open book examination, right from the beginning might basically take some bit of stress away, in the sense that student will start taking or paying attention to the class more, understanding things more, and basically not worrying about I have to get this much marks. Or basically I have to get this kind of a CTC, which is more than whatever
They will worry. To
others are
say they
getting
will
in.
not, it's a very competitive world. They will worry, but being able to change the emphasis. So thank you for.
Yes.
Thank you for. I would like to conclude by saying, from my, now that having worked almost 30 years, in a year I would have worked 30 years after my B school, no, in 2 years it'll be 30 years. I'm in the 29th year, 28 years have completed. I can only say the best course, and we had great professors, Dr. Singh in marketing, Dr. Anup Singh teaching us OD, Dr. Poonam Sehgal. You know, the softer courses need to be also given a lot more important. Today I say that the course I did of Dr. Poonam Sehgal on personal growth lab, I think that is the most important course. You know, rest everything can be learned. So really I believe the courses which are softer skills need to be more accelerated at B schools. That's my personal, a course on how to work in teams, a course on conflict resolution, a course on discovering yourself, course on happiness, course on communication, especially when we have a mobile phone. We didn't have a mobile phone when I was studying. So I think the three things I'd say to end the panel is, how do we get the industry to understand what is the uniqueness of an institution and collaborate with them? How do we get professors who teach at higher education institutions to do more industry stints? And third is to be able to make the curriculum contextual. If we do this, I'm sure what Professor T.G. Sitaram and what Professor Sas Buddhe have set out to do through their leadership of the institutions that govern higher education will happen. Please give our panelists a big round of applause. I have to do one more panel before lunch, so thank you so much. Thank you.